Hi, I'm Nigel O'Neill and welcome to BTA Bytes. In each episode of BTA Bytes, we sit down with an industry expert to explain a particular topic or technology, which we do by asking them three simple questions. What is it? Why is it important? And what are the key takeaways or actions for you, the audience? Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Tosh Onishi, and the topic we're going to be talking about is candidate fraud. But before we get into the main questions, Tosh, please go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe share how you first came across this topic.
Sure. Thanks, Nigel. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Tosh Onishi. I'm based out of Sydney in Australia. I was formerly the regional head of talent acquisition in Asia Pacific for both Visa and Okta. I've been in the talent and recruiting space for over 20 years now. I first came across candidate fraud itself has actually existed for a long time in many different guises. It's effectively where someone interviews on behalf of someone else, and effectively whoever you interviewed is not actually the person that shows up on the first day of work. But what we're going to talk about today is something that was first reported last year and has become quite a severe issue. So looking forward to getting into it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Tosh. I was going to say, when you underplay it there, some slightly big names there, Visa and Okta. I was going to say it's not exactly a small organisation, so you are very well qualified to talk about this topic, and particularly because my understanding is this topic is particularly prevalent within the technology domain as well. So anyway, before we get into that, could you explain what is candidate fraud?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, at its very basic level, candidate fraud is where someone who interviews for a particular job is not the actual individual that shows up for the first day of work. Now, as I mentioned earlier, candidate fraud has existed for a while, but what has happened recently and what has been reported recently is that with the advent of AI, and as well as the world moving and shifting to a lot of remote work as a result of the COVID pandemic, it has been discovered that North Korea are running a state-sponsored scam and process to infiltrate foreign companies. Now, it started in the US. It is a global issue. It's also been picked up in the media in Australia recently. But the North Korean government are running a program and a systemic program to infiltrate foreign companies through remote IT jobs. For the purposes primarily of funding the North Korean regime. As most of us know, North Korea has been sanctioned by a lot of countries around the world. And so in order to fund the regime, they are looking at more inventive ways. And so one of them is to infiltrate companies through remote IT workers, and to fund the regime. But there's also, unfortunately, some other, sort of more sinister things that are happening behind the scenes as well. But just to sort of explain how it works, again, as I said, with the advent of AI, these agents are able to use AI and deepfakes to generate fictitious profiles that they feel will appeal to foreign employers. They will then use AI technology to change their voice, change their appearance, all that kind of thing, attend interviews virtually, get hired virtually as well. Once they're hired, this is kind of where the really sort of scary stuff starts to begin. This scheme operates by having a local laptop farmer involved as well. And so in some of the more severe cases where they've been infiltrating American companies, there would be an American individual in the US somewhere who is able to receive laptops from the company through their remote onboarding program. And these are known as laptop farmers. And so what they do is they receive these laptops from these companies for these supposed IT workers that they've just hired, and then they give access to the North Korean agents virtually through these laptop farms into corporate systems. And as I said, at the moment, they actually are doing a lot of the work that they've been hired to do. They're collecting the paychecks. But over the last few years, it's been discovered that they have been siphoning money out of global companies to the tune of $500 million a year.
Oh, wow.
So this is the severity of the scam and what the North Korean government has been doing. Where it starts to get really sinister, these laptop farmers, as I said, these local citizens and residents of these countries where they're receiving the laptops, often actually don't know that they're working for the North Korean government and these North Korean agents. And so there was a report published in the Australian media recently, and one of the people that has been laptop farming is this lady in the US. It's a very unfortunate story because she is poor. She's been unemployed for quite some time, and she actually started documenting her daily life on TikTok. And one day she receives this very miraculous job offer through LinkedIn to be an IT consultant. Unknowingly, she had no idea that she was working for the North Korean agents at the time. And unknowingly, she was running a laptop farm of over 90 laptops. In a 3-year period, she generated over $17 million of revenue, just one person. For this North Korean regime. Unfortunately, she was arrested by the FBI and was sentenced to 8.5 years of jail.
I mean, that's no laughing matter. And is it just? I mean, 17 million, 90 laptops. That's a huge. That's departments of people. It's not just one or two individuals. And when you talk also about the $500 million being siphoned off, is it just North Korea, or is it wider spread than that as well?
Well, at the moment, the reports and the investigations have only led to North Korea. So there are cybersecurity companies in the world that have reported this. The Australian government has now reported it as well. As I mentioned earlier, it made the mainstream media, I'm going to say about a month or so ago in Australia. Okay. So it is a very prevalent issue. It's been going on in the US now for years and is growing around the world, unfortunately.
Okay. And is it, I mean, one of the other questions I have about it, if you know the answer, that'd be brilliant. Is it just North Korea in terms of state sponsors? Is it just state sponsored, or are other organizations, say cyber criminals, taking this up as a means to an end?
Well, at the moment, it appears to be state sponsored. And I think this is part of, for me personally, this is part of the, I guess, concern about this particular issue is that if it was a criminal organization, like criminal organizations have been trying to infiltrate companies for years. People are getting scammed all the time. It's unfortunate, but it's been happening for a long time. And I hate to say it, but you kind of expect that of a criminal organization.
Yeah. Yes.
But then to hear that a nation and a government is running a systemic program to infiltrate companies through nefarious means and basically siphoning money out to fund the North Korean regime, that to me is scary on a completely different scale.
It is. I mean, because also I suppose one of the things you have to think about is not just about the funds which are being siphoned off and obviously funding regimes which are obviously sanctioned by a lot of countries around the world. It's also, what do they then have access to, and what are those risks that you're introducing into the into your organisation?
Exactly. And part of the investigation in Australia, the Director General of ASIO, one of Australia's top cybersecurity agencies, was interviewed, and he is deeply concerned about this issue. And he said exactly what you just referenced. It's stealing money is one thing, but these people are not accessing corporate systems through hacking or getting in through the back door. They are being invited in the front door unknowingly. But willingly, companies are letting North Koreans into their corporate networks and giving them access to everything. And so what was interesting in the report in the Australian media was that they actually started to look at what were these North Korean operatives actually doing during their workday. Whilst they were logged into the corporate network, they were researching effectively military technology. They were researching anti-drone technology, long-range laser technology. So it's not just collecting a paycheck and funding the North Korean regime. They're actually now able to do research that helps and furthers the North Korean military program, which I don't need to tell everyone what the North Korean military program is like. Everyone was well aware of what they're up to.
Well, exactly. And I suppose you've already touched upon several points of it already, but let's frame it up. Why is this important that we know about this?
So I think it's important because without awareness of this issue, organizations can't put in place processes and protections to stop this from happening. So the more awareness there is about the issue, then the more that collectively we can do to stop it, because governments alone can't stop this, right?
Okay.
I mean, these people are getting access to US companies, American companies, I'm sure British companies and other European companies, just by faking an identity and getting hired in a remote job. So they're
Yes.
getting through a standard recruitment process. And so companies need to know about this. And depending on which part of the world you live in, I know particularly in Australia, as a director of a company who has unknowingly hired North Koreans, there are potential criminal penalties for the company directors who have hired these North Korean operatives and who are now inadvertently funding the North Korean regime and breaching, Australian government sanctions. So it's a very serious issue. And as has been pointed out, it's not just about money. It's what information are you giving out to North Korea? What are they going to do with that information? If they get access to a company that runs critical infrastructure, for example, there's no telling what they can do once they've got full access to a corporate system.
And you raise a very key point there, which is about access to critical infrastructure. What can you actually do? Because so much of our world is now dependent upon the technology which we use, be that from our banking transactions, our medical, everything is underpinned by technology and that infrastructure. So it does raise some serious questions there. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why. So that's, the why is so important, not just as you can be fined and held personally liable as a company director or, reputational risk as well, I suppose comes under this banner as well, in terms of if all of a sudden you are deemed to be a flaw or a weakness in the supply chain, all of a sudden your organization, not just from a reputation standpoint, but the contracts, the money, everything else you could lose, as well as actually the penalties you'll get from the governments and so forth. So there's that part to it as well. And I suppose that sort of neatly leads on to what are the key takeaways that the audience should either consider, or what are the actions they should be doing? Or if you want, say both. What should they be doing? How can we defend against this?
Yeah, so I think you really need to look at your hiring and recruitment process and make sure that you have safeguards and protections in place to ensure that you can trust and verify the identity of every employee or even contractor that you're bringing into your business. And I think this is why I was saying earlier, this issue has become really prevalent, and this issue is allowed to happen because the world moved from in-person interviewing and showing up to the office every day to fully remote work through the COVID pandemic, and many companies have kept remote work as a part of their standard operating procedures. But secondly, with the rise of AI, it's become easier for people to fake identities, fake profiles, and everything else. And so you really need to, if you're a business owner or you're in HR, you really need to look at your hiring practices and make sure that you are putting in place a few different safeguards throughout and a few different stepping stones throughout your recruitment and onboarding process to ensure that you don't inadvertently hire someone that you don't know who they are. And as simple as this sounds, the easiest way to do it is make sure that you meet people in person. And so a couple of things that I've seen done in the past in organizations that I've worked for, and as I've spoken to other people in my network who have also faced similar issues, there are two or three very simple things that you can do. Number one, and probably the most important thing, don't onboard anyone and hand them a laptop with your access to your corporate network until you've eyeballed them and until you've seen them in person. And if that means you have to spend money to fly them to your offices to do onboarding and orientation for a few days or a week and pay for their flights and accommodation, it's worth it. Right? The second thing that you can do, going a little bit earlier into your recruitment process, you might even want to then start introducing in-person interviews. So if you have people who are remote to where your office is, spend a little bit of money to fly them into your offices for an interview. Aside from the great candidate experience that it creates, it gives you another opportunity to verify that the person that you think you're talking to is actually who they are.
Yeah.
The other thing that you can do, a lot of companies now, whether they're regulated or not, do security background checks, when they're hiring employees. And a lot of the background check providers are becoming quite sophisticated in ID verifications as well. So you can do ID verifications with people before you send an offer out. So if you had, for example, interviewed them in person and then you'd done an ID verification, you could be fairly well certain and fairly comfortable that this person is genuinely who they claim to be.
Yeah.
You can offer them the job, you can go through your onboarding processes, and then by the time it comes to their first day of work, have them show up at your office, even if that means spending money, eyeball them, make sure that you trust that they are who they are, then hand them the laptop and away you go. So it is actually quite a simple thing to weed out.
I was going to say, it sounds simple, but also the key thing is we are social creatures, and it actually improves the onboarding experience. Who doesn't want their
100%.
employer to bring them into the office and actually spend time investing in them and actually creating that great, not only candidate experience, but also that onboarding experience? It's one of those critical launch moments for success, isn't it, in any organization?
Absolutely. And so I don't want to turn people off from remote workers. I think there is tremendous value to having remote workers. I think, one of the advantages of the COVID pandemic and everyone working from home is it opened up tremendous talent pools to companies, to people who could do work from locations that they would previously not consider because you don't live in the same city as our office. But now if everyone's working from home, it doesn't matter where you are. So there are tremendous benefits to having a remote workforce, but I think if you are serious about preventing this threat, you need to invest in bringing people together in person at some stage before they get access to the corporate network.
That's brilliant, Tosh. Thank you for that. Before we wrap up, is there any particular industries which you say should maybe be particularly on the lookout for this, and making sure they've got the appropriate safeguards in place?
So I wouldn't necessarily say it's an industry-specific issue, but I think if you're the type of organization that have been and are continuing to hire a remote IT workforce, so we're talking software engineers and other people involved in developing or maintaining your technology infrastructure, if you have been and are continuing to allow your technology workforce to work 100% remotely, you should be extremely cautious about this issue, because that's where the North Koreans have been targeting, and this is very much framed as an IT worker scam. One of the other things that has been reported is that the reason that these people, these North Korean actors, are able to maintain the jobs that they get by faking their way into a job is that they actually have 10 software engineers who actually are producing amazing work. So as an employer, it appears as though this person you've hired is an amazing engineer. Of course they're amazing because there's 10 people behind the scenes that you don't know about doing the work. So they keep producing the work and they don't raise any red flags, and that's how they're able to keep the jobs and keep the funding and the money flowing.
Apart from the fact it sounds wonderful that you're actually getting great quality work and everything else like that, it's just a shame about the rest of the downside, isn't it?
Yes.
Otherwise, it'd be quite good. Well, that's brilliant, Tosh. Thank you very much for that. I mean, some of the key insights you shared there about, particularly, the example you gave of the lady in the US with 90 laptops and sort of running a laptop farm and $17 million worth of dollars, which has been not siphoned off, but redistributed to countries which obviously are sanctioned and obviously we shouldn't be doing business with based upon our locations, is quite insightful. So thank you for that. So Tosh, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, I'm sure they can look you up on LinkedIn. They'll find you there, won't they?
Please.
Yep. And for
absolutely.
me, all I'm going to say is thank you very much. That was brilliant. And this episode was brought to you by the team from Behind the Algorithm. Please check out the website at www.behindthealgo.com for more episodes, or from wherever you get your podcasts from. Bye for now.